Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining my presentation today. We will be exploring the fascinating world of religion in Frank Herbert's Dune saga. Through this journey, we will examine how different belief systems shape the characters, cultures, and conflicts within the narrative. Howdy. I recorded this afterwards just to put it on the front end as a disclaimer because if there's one thing Dune fans are known for, it's being, how do I say this without not making myself look like an idiot? A little too into the book, if that makes sense. Like, Dune fans are obnoxious. We will go on for hours. And this presentation is like over 15 minutes long. So I apologize for that ahead of time. However, I have read this book an obscene number of times. And when I say an obscene number of times, I've read this more than the Bible, and I grew up fundamentalist Christian. So I've read this book like 46 times, if I'm counting. I've read the series probably 10 or 11 times. The first book is the best, but I highly encourage you to read the first series. There's a prequel series written by Frank Herbert's son. Don't read them. Don't read them first. Don't read them at all. Pretend they don't exist. They're hot street trash. Did I mention Dune fans are obnoxious? It's probably best to start off with why is Dune unique? Dune features a lack of computers that is uncommon in most sci-fi. It's a very low-tech universe. There are no supernatural elements. Frank Herbert goes out of his way to describe every possible supernatural action in physical terms. Instead of technobabble, because the low-tech environment, most of the science fiction, as it were, comes from the ecology of the planet and the importance of adapting to your environment. And also politics. The books are insanely heavy with political overtures, and there is layer after layer of political intrigue influencing every action of every character. Dune's lack of computers and low-tech atmosphere comes from an event in the universe called the Butlerian Jihad. This is the Dune universe's Judgment Day, if you're a Terminator fan. The machines tried to take over, and the universe collectively got together and kicked the machines out. And in this universe, there is a rule in the Orange Catholic Bible, which we'll talk about later, that said, "Thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a human mind." And we'll go over why that's important and affects the religions in the series as the presentation continues. It's also important to go over the different factions in the universe because all of them interact with politics and religion in different ways. Starting, we have the Lance Rod, which is basically a collective of different powerful old houses. You can think of the King Arthur's court as a good analogy for what this is like, only instead of one person ruling Britain and one person ruling different sections of the United Kingdom, they rule different planets. The Bene Gesserit are the evil witch space nuns that create, unwittingly at least, most of the conflict in the Dune saga. The next up is CHOAM. This is basically a mega corporation whose entire purpose is to put red tape around interstellar travel and trade. They control literally everything. Earlier, when I was talking about the lack of thinking machines, it's impossible to form a spacefaring society without computers. So what they did is they had genetic programs that fast-tracked evolution into allowing a human mind to function like a machine. Pictured below is Thufir Hawat, who is the mentat responsible for Leto Atreides. Next, we have the Spacing Guild. They are basically like the United Auto Workers Union, but for the mutated humans that ingest the spice on the planet Arrakis so much that they can see the future and predict when it is okay to have safe travel. So instead of plotting a course with a computer, what you have is them going, okay, if we go this direction, we'll get hit by an asteroid. So we need to go this direction, then this direction. And that's how they plot safe courses, is they can see multiple futures and pick the one where they arrive safely. They have a complete monopoly on all of travel, so much so that every other bends to their will at any time. However, the only thing they really seem to care about is maintaining the status quo. So they are an incredibly powerful faction that tends to require fealty but little favors. And next up we have the Fremen, which are the core of the story, which is the native inhabitants to the planet Arrakis, where the spice is found. The story revolves around the spice and its importance. Think of it as an allegory for the Middle East, except for the fact that in the world of Dune, all interstellar travel is literally impossible without the spice found on this one particular planet. On Earth, there's oil other places. Imagine if oil only existed in one country. And imagine what the people who chose to live on this dusty planet would go through with the constant battling and going back and forth with power struggles over the planet. They are viewed as weak and small in number, which turns out to be a poor assessment on the rest of the galaxy's behalf. A unified faith. The Orange Catholic Bible and its existence within the story suggests a dominant religion across the Imperium. This religion appears to be an amalgam of several different religions, and it is entirely, or it has entirely lost its religious devotion except for a maintaining of power structures. That's not to say there aren't devotees, but when everybody believes in the same thing, it loses part of its meaning. There's no one left to convert. The text's influence is seen in rituals and cultural practices throughout the Imperium. The Dune universe presents a future where humanity has seemingly achieved a degree of religious unity. The Orange Catholic Bible serves as a common thread, hinting at the past where major Earth religions merged to form a single dominant faith. This creates a sense of shared history and tradition within the Imperium, despite the vastness of space. In Dune, because there's no one to convert, religion is used as a weapon. And the story is based around this philosophy. It's impossible to have a presentation on Dune and not have a slide devoted to the Fremen. The Fremen are Dune. They are the story. They are the ones who understand the planet Arrakis, or Dune, better than about anyone else. And their knowledge of ecology goes so far as to showcase how important it is to be careful with whom's planet you're going to mess with. Their spirituality and practicality are born out of the planet they're on. Almost all of their rituals derive something from the Orange Catholic Bible, but are tainted by the harsh environment of the planet Arrakis, which is an entire desert. All of their rituals, for example, when someone dies, they reclaim the body's water into the tribe. Or because their life is so fraught with every single moment, I have to be doing something in order to help my tribe survive. They have kind of like a purge, per se, but not like one where they go around killing everyone. They have occasional spice-fueled orgies. And now we come to the crux of the story, which is the Messiah. Paul Atreides lost when his family loses control of Arrakis, gets thrown out into the desert with his mother, and they have to figure out some way to survive. Luckily, one of the ways in which the Bene Gesserit use religion as a weapon is they plant the religion in indigenous cultures all over the place, kind of like the Catholics did to South America. This religion is meant to have a base set of rules that any Bene Gesserit person can take advantage of in order to escape harm. However, this is the story of when opportunity meets planning. And Paul has been part of a breeding program that generation after generation they've been trying to breed someone who can see the future. But see the future in a way where it's more like a member of the Spacing Guild, but a step beyond it. The members of the Spacing Guild are focused on looking at where a starship can go. They need someone to be a leader who can go where none of them cannot, where they cannot. The Bene Gesserit realize that the galaxy is stagnating, and they want someone to lead them out of it. In later books, they talk about plenty of failed messiahs. Paul Atreides, what he's supposed to be in the Bene Gesserit's tongue, is called the Kwisatz Haderach. And there are several failed Kwisatz Haderach in the story. Paul's Fremen name is Muad'Dib. He keeps his first name, so he goes by Paul Muad'Dib in the story. So to honor both his Fremen brethren and the name his father gave him before his father passes away. Frank Herbert has been interviewed many times about Dune, and I'll summarize. Frank Herbert wrote this book to analyze power structure and the consequences of your victory. So something that's not shown very well in the first Dune book or in any of the adaptations that is shown excellently in the rest of the series, which I encourage everyone to read, is that the Fremen are way more powerful than anyone thought. They spread over the galaxy like a plague. Once they're radicalized by receiving their savior, they go on a holy war and basically take over the entire galaxy. They do this not only by having the strongest military men, but the Fremen don't care about the spice. They're perfectly happy just to live on Arrakis. So they just straight up use the spice as a bargaining chip. Hey, they basically tell the Spacing Guild, we'll destroy all the spice. We don't care. So you're going to do whatever we want. Another power structure that is very important in the story is marriage and concubines. Much like old royalty, treaties are signed through marriage and possibly through kids. The Bene Gesserits have hijacked this to take the best breeding that is possible through royalty and breed the Kwisatz Haderach, which is Paul. So love is most often found for the leaders of houses or people who leave their marriage open for treaties in concubine. And Paul's love in the story, Chani, is his concubine. And lastly, this is kind of my own 2 cents, but the decades-long plan by the Bene Gesserit is short-sighted. It's funny when you read the entire series how they just knew that change needed to happen, but never thought, maybe we should figure out how to control that change. They thought by doing the breeding programs they would control the change. However, when Paul came along and took advantage of the Fremen, he provided the change they needed, but they immediately go on the attack against him in the rest of the series. In fact, it's funny, Paul's kids are really the main characters of the entire series. Paul is only who he is in the first 2 books, and then in the 3rd book he plays like a desert prophet sort of character. But Leto Atreides II is really the main character of Dune. This first book, as famous as it is all set up for what's to follow. And the last thing I'll say is that don't plant a seed in the wilderness and expect it not to adapt. This is what happens when Paul takes control of the Fremen, is the Bene Gesserit planted a seed in an extremely harsh environment, and it adapted a little too well, and went on to cause a new jihad that basically dismantled most of the power structures that they had spent centuries building. And here are your 2 questions. In Dune, how do religious beliefs and institutions influence the characters' actions and motivations? How are these beliefs used as tools for control and manipulation? And secondly, how does the harsh environment of Arrakis and its dependence on spice shape the Fremen's religious practices and worldview? How does their faith connect them to the natural world and influence their fight for survival?